What's up guys, this is T-Class96, back with Chapter 13X of my FE7 Chaos Mode 0% Growths LTC playthrough. This chapter is called the Ballista Sword, in reference to the Steel Sword, which as we've seen has the range of a 3 to 10 ballista in this hack. This is the first Gaiden or paralog map, meaning special requirements have to be fulfilled in order to unlock it. In this case, simply visiting the Northwest Village last map was all we had to do. The objective of this map is to defend our green friend Merlinus for 7 turns. He starts on an island with several choke points we can hold against the onslaught of enemies from all directions. As soon as Oswin snipes a mage with the Steel Sword, the western choke point is more or less trivialized. All the enemies left there have only 2 ranged weapons like the Iron Sword, Iron Bow, and Iron Axe, and so anyone we use to hold the bridge only has to take 1 hit per turn. To the south, Sarah and Guy will pretty much spend the entire map distracting the swarm of brigands who would otherwise threaten the village. By sticking to forest and using weapon triangle advantage, they'll be in very little danger. Most of our forces will be focused on dealing with the enemies pouring in from the north. The most dangerous enemies will be a bunch of nomads, who have high movement and pack a punch with their 14 might iron bows. For the first turn, we'll just take a defensive formation which only requires Lowen and Matthew to face 1 enemy each. Dorcas has no weapons, but he'll still be useful, distracting an enemy on turn 1 to protect Hector, and then doing some rescue drops later. The first main big change to this map from vanilla is that the boss is now a much bigger threat thanks to his Steel Sword, which lets him attack Merlinus from 10 spaces away. We could have rescued Merlinus in order to keep him totally safe, but he's actually convenient bait that will force Puzon to move his full movement. Since the Steel Sword is so inaccurate, Merlinus has a good chance of dodging, and then Puzon will be left in an exposed position where we can eliminate him on turn 2. The other change to this map, as I'm sure you've noticed, is that it's no longer a Fog of War map. For some reason, Clockinator removed Fog of War from some maps that had it. He also added Fog to some maps that didn't have it, which will be pretty interesting to see when we get there. Since there's no longer fog on this map, it's much easier to notice the fact that this map is one of the only ones in the game to have the dreaded enemy phase reinforcements. I guess the developers thought they were being sneaky by hiding ambush spawns in the fog. After that long enemy phase, Bartra, Guy, Hector, and Eliwood can do some cleanup of enemies that were left at low health. The next priority is defeating Puzon. Just like most maps in this game, killing the boss will stop any further reinforcements from coming. There are a ton of reinforcement waves on this map, and fighting all of them is definitely not worth the hassle. This boss kill is relatively straightforward. Oswin just needs to land twice with the Steel Sword, and then Rebecca can run up and finish him off with the hand axe, despite weapon triangle disadvantage. The hand axe is thankfully very accurate. Killing Puzon not only stops reinforcements, but nets us a killer bow, which is basically a weaker but more accurate and high crit steel bow, so it could be useful for Hector to pick up kills with. Now that that's done, I have to do some rescue chaining to get everyone back on the island so that they can hide behind Oswin while he takes on the rest of the enemies. The fact that most enemies on this map only have 2 range is again convenient because Oswin can easily handle them with his Iron Sword. The Iron Sword isn't a great weapon long term because it's very heavy and doesn't counter from 1 or 3 range, but it's surprisingly usable in the early game. Time for another never-ending enemy phase. Here come the nomads. Matthew has decent avoid, so I counted on him getting at least one dodge this chapter. Oswin also has to do some dodging. Since he faces so many enemies with around 50 hit, who all deal slightly different amounts of damage, it's hard to say his exact chances of survival. Oswin's been brought to pretty low HP, but Marcus can heal him back up almost to full. With his decent base magic of 9, Marcus is surprisingly good at healing, even with the basic heal staff. I've been rotating a few units to hold the western bridge while we thin out the enemies, and Eliwood will take it against the last Myrmidon. He needs to use the inaccurate Thunder Tome, because with fire he would be weighed down so much as to get doubled. After getting healed, Oswin can run up to block off the northern group of enemies from reaching our main group. At this point, there's mostly axe users left, who Oswin should have no trouble with. By the way, I'm attacking with Hector whenever possible, even when he misses, because training his weapon rank will be important for late game. Sarah and Guy are almost done with the brigands, so Sarah can finally come out of the forest to deal with this hand axe brigand who's been annoying her from 3 range. Huh. Huh. Hey! So, Oswin should have been fine, but he got a bit unlucky and is back to low HP. Great. No worries though, Marcus can just heal him again and get rescued out of danger. At this point, we just have to clean up a few enemies and get some last minute EXP to Hector. Marcus will also be healing every turn just to work on his staff rank. With the time left in this video, I want to give my take on some common criticisms lobbied at this game and its defend maps. If you weren't aware, FE7 is sort of infamous in the Fire Emblem community for having a large amount of defend and survive maps just like this one. In this sort of LTC playthrough, I think the main annoyance is that the turn count can't be reduced, no matter how well you play. However, defend and survive maps are often criticized by people even in a more casual setting. I've seen all sorts of comments from people over the years saying stuff like, "They're boring and too easy to trivialize. They're hard to design well. It works against the core aspect of Fire Emblem. They have a high turn flow. They're utterly dull and protracted. They have worthless green units that add flavor but detract from gameplay. It's almost never a good primary objective. Bad map." And to all these criticisms, the only thing I have to say is, yes, I agree, defend maps suck. Anyway, the last thing to do before we wrap this up is to get the Eliwood Hector C support, because even in an LTC, you always gotta make room for some shipping. And that's Chapter 13X, completed in 7 turns. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe. Come back next time for Chapter 14, where the forecast is 33% chance of Urk, 50% chance of Sarah, and 100% chance of rain.